American Ornithologists Union is the oldest and largest group of professional ornithologists in the Western Hemisphere. The AOU has been hosting annual national meetings and publishing their quarterly journal, the AUK, since 1883. But with birding enthusiasts on the rise, the ornithologists at Oregon State University decided to take on the challenge of putting on the first ever local meeting of the AOU. Dr. Sean Murphy, a U.S. Geological Survey biologist, was a co-organizer of the event.
The idea behind the Willamette Valley Bird Symposium is to bring local birder enthusiasts together with avian researchers and ornithologists in the community and celebrate avian research and conservation and science.
OSU Professor of Wildlife Ecology, Dr. Susan Haig, is a former president of the AOU.
The Willamette Valley Bird Symposium represents the first attempt at the AOU in having a local bird meeting rather than having our annual meeting, which is a very large meeting. And what we're hoping to do is have a series of local meetings whereby ornithologists at different universities can have one-day meetings where we can illustrate our research to the local community and have people become more aware of what's happening in the field of avian conservation.
So, on Saturday, January 24th, 2015, with the help of enthusiastic students and faculty, as well as volunteers from community birding groups, the Linus Pauling Science Center at Oregon State University opened its doors to the first Willamette Valley Bird Symposium. Dr. Eric Forsman has been the lead scientist on the northern spotted owl issue for more than 30 years. He was the keynote speaker at the Willamette Valley Bird Symposium.
I was interested in owls, and I became very interested in the spotted owl because at that time, this was the 1960s, there was almost nothing known about spotted owls. Once I got into it, I never could go back. I got suckered in, and it was so interesting, and it was such a high-profile political situation that it was just a lot of fun to be involved in that kind of work and to feel like you were actually contributing to our knowledge and to the state of the art in terms of forest management.
What would a bird symposium be without birds? Experts from the Chintimony Wildlife Center lightened up the symposium with demonstrations of birds rescued from the wild.
I'm here with an F1 generation spotted owl, so that means that she's 50-50 spotted owl and barred owl. She had one parent from each species, and she's been with us for about 10 years, and she's an absolutely fantastic education bird to have because she's a great talking point, having two very prominent species as her parents.
The symposium not only featured scientific talks by OSU graduate students, but also offered hands-on demonstrations of ornithological tools and techniques. Ornithologists have long used many means to individually mark birds to track their movements and locations throughout the annual cycle. These plastic and metal bands are some of the most common markers. Blood sampling is used in many ornithological research projects to determine genetic identity of individuals and populations, physiological state, and isotopic composition. Museum specimens, or bird skins, are an invaluable source of information for taxonomists, geneticists, behavioral ecologists, and evolutionary biologists. Unfortunately, the very difficult art of making museum skins is dying out, making any specimen far more valuable than in the past. The recent revolution in molecular biology has spilled into ornithology, where scientists use molecular markers to identify sex, individual, population, and species. Classifying various birds into appropriate evolutionary groups has been practiced since before the time of Linnaeus, and remains as controversial and important today as it was 600 years ago. Typically, net launchers are very large and require dynamite to blast a huge net over a flock of birds. However, this smaller transportable version can be launched by one person and is used to capture a targeted bird. Various tracking devices have been developed over the past 40 years as a means of tracking birds locally and while on migration. Tracker dogs have such sophisticated noses that with proper training, they can sniff out anything from a specific bird nest to an endangered plant. A central goal of the symposium was to expose young students to careers in ornithology. The Oregon State University undergraduate bird nerds were enthusiastic participants.
In Western Oregon, my favorite places to bird are Basket Slough and Finley Wildlife Refuge. They have a great variety of birds. You can see things from raptors, and then you can also see songbirds such as meadowlarks, and then wetland birds and waterfowl.
And even the youngest birders in the Willamette Valley got to participate.
My name is Ella and I'm 12. My name is Rufus and I'm 9.
What got you into birding?
A friend of the family is an ornithologist here at OSU and she really inspired me.
What we're hoping is to use this meeting, this first local meeting of the AOU as a template for other universities across the country to go ahead and have their own local meeting. We're hoping these local meetings will serve as outreach to local communities and will serve as a way of really bringing ornithologists together at universities and throughout their local communities.
I think the future of ornithology is, there's no end of questions you can ask, and in fact, ornithology is no different than other sciences. Typically, the more you study, the more you realize how much you don't know. The only thing that limits us is our imagination in terms of the kinds of questions we think of and try to ask.
Hey! Hey! Hey!